I'm Travis Frame, and this is Frame by Frame, and today I'm going to be reviewing every movie I watched in the month of May. I broke my own personal record for most movies watched in a month in May, with 52 first-time watches and 1 rewatch. Today I'm going to be reviewing, in a very short manner, every single one that I watched. "2001: A Space Odyssey. Superbly made and an incredible technical achievement, but to me is very overrated and lacks substance. 20th Century Woman. A phenomenal portrait of characters that is full of emotion. 47 meters down uncaged. A hilarious disaster that is ridiculous and bad. A Serious Man. My personal least favorite Coen Brothers movie. I never connected with the comedy or the story and found it to be fairly average. Behind the Mask. The Rise of Leslie Vernon. A very clever take on the slasher genre that, while ending up somewhat cliche, knows what it is and does it in a very fun way. Blackfish. A great documentary that covers an important topic and reveals its message in a powerful way. Buster's Small Heart. A strange movie that I have conflicting feelings about, but overall I like its weirdness. Coherence. An amazing low-budget movie that shows that you can accomplish a complex and intriguing movie by putting in effort even without a budget at all. Cold War. A beautifully shot film that I like, but I never felt the chemistry or the romance between the two protagonists. Crimson Peak. Amazing in every aspect. The directing, cinematography are all top-notch, and the set design is one of, if not my favorite from any movie I've ever seen. Escape from New York. Fun at points, but also drags a lot in others. Overall, I thought it was average. Extraction. Good action at times, and the long shot is one of my new favorite action sequences. However, I found the rest of the movie to be somewhat disinteresting, with boring characters, with the action never being quite as strong as John Wick or The Raid. Glengarry Glen Ross. Great writing and great performances with an interesting story, takes what could have been a boring movie and makes it captivating throughout. Gwen. Overall fairly average. I feel like it mismarketed as a horror movie with very few horror elements, but is very well shot and acted. I also still think it's better than The Witch. Happy as Lazzaro. A charming Italian movie that gave me a much different story than I expected, and although a strange choice for the movie to present certain aspects and ideas as it does it extremely well and creates a very charming and happy film. Happy Death Day. Expected to hate it and ended up having an amazing time watching it. It's creative in how it uses its premise and is overall extremely fun to watch. Happy Death Day to You. Thought they would just rehash the first, but it does its own things with the story and continues with the characters, and while not quite as good as the first to me, it is still so much fun. Have a Good Trip. Adventures in Psychedelics. A much better documentary than I thought it would be, but still comes across as very biased towards the side of the argument that the filmmakers agree with, and it slightly detracts from my opinion of the documentary as a whole. Hotel Artemis. Another surprise that wasn't anything crazy good, but was a fun movie to watch with some very good moments. Isn't It Romantic? I'm a big fan of movies that play on genre tropes, and while this movie plays into them a little too much at times, it was still enjoyable in the ways in which they comment on romantic comedy tropes, and at times it was great. It Comes at Night. Not really very scary for what presents itself as a horror movie. There are some great scenes, but at times the characters can be inconsistent, and it left me with some questions, but not the positive ambiguous kind. Jarhead. Great acting and an interesting take on the war movie genre. Justice League Gods and Monsters. Towards the middle to low end of the DC animated movies, and it is not a true Justice League film at all, but it is entertaining in what it does. Killing Them Softly. There is some greatness within the movie, but it doesn't always come through. The great moments do make it worth a watch though. Mr. Right. A pretty average movie that makes absolutely no sense for most of it, but is still enjoyable at times. Murder Mystery. Much better than I thought it would be, but still nothing super special. The twists are interesting and fun, but other aspects of the story and characters lack quality. Platypossum. A new contender for the worst movie I have ever seen. Without a doubt the worst film I have ever seen, but not my least favorite. Horrible and revolting and should have never been made. Red Eye. Wes Craven was a master, and this movie proves it like all of his other work. A great thriller as long as you can suspend your disbelief for a little bit. Road to Perdition. Well made in every aspect, but still felt bland. Searching for Sugar Man. A phenomenal documentary that told a fascinating story. Serpico. Great acting, but the plot feels a little jumbled. It feels like a movie that, if paced correctly, should have been longer. Sinister. One of my new favorite horror movies. Potentially a top 10 horror movie for me, and it was truly unnerving. Sinister 2. Had some good moments, but was a massive letdown after how much I loved the first. Snatch. My new favorite Guy Ritchie film. I liked the characters and the dialogue and found it to be very enjoyable. Sucker Punch. Started off great, and with every passing second I realized that it was continually getting worse. It's a movie that feels like a video game, with 4 good levels that are very short, filled in between with almost entirely unrelated, boring, unskippable cutscenes. Sweet Virginia. Another movie that is good at points, but never does anything to set itself apart or do anything new. The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Mostly funny, but I feel like it is very overrated and is pretty dumb. The Artist. Beautifully put together and a great story to tell, but it didn't have the impact on me that other films about Hollywood have had. The Bad Batch. Well shot, and some of the actors do a good job when they actually do something, but other than that, it is really bad and really boring. The Conjuring 2. Another great start that made me consider if it would challenge Sinister for the best new horror movie I watched this month, but a few comically weird attempts at scares hold it back from being at that next level. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Hands down the best movie I watched this month. Phenomenal in every aspect. To me, it is a masterpiece and further cements Fincher as one of my favorite directors of all time. The Death of Stalin. A great comedy that is very funny with how it chooses to cover the events it presents. The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. An interesting concept and an interesting movie to watch, but I wanted more than what I got. The Five Obstructions. An inspiring look at the difficulty of filmmaking and how challenge can breed creativity and innovation. The Green Inferno. Surprised me with a few good scenes and a good performance from the lead, but is heavily bogged down by bad writing, terrible characters, and some scenes that were not disturbing, they were just really stupid. The New World. A gorgeous film, and while it isn't my favorite of the Malick films I have seen, it is still an incredible work that was truly an experience like his other films. The Rum Diary. A strong lead performance by Depp, but ultimately somewhat forgettable. The Wicker Man. An interesting movie that I can see why many cite it as a heavy influence on Midsommar. I think they are very different, and this film does do many things that are weird and strange, but it, in my opinion, is not on the same level as Midsommar. This Is the End. Funny and unique throughout the entire movie. While it is stupid and ridiculous, it is consistent in its laugh and is probably my new favorite Seth Rogen comedy. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Very well done, but the story can get a bit muddled at times. Venom. Average. Wonder Woman Bloodlines. One of the weakest DC animated movies. The animation isn't great, and the writing isn't very good, and it was pretty disappointing. Those were all my first-time watches for the month of May, and for my rewatch, Parasite. Even better upon a second watch. I hope everyone enjoyed my review of all 53 movies I watched in May of 2020.